So in today's video, I want to discuss 5 habits that beginners photographers have that I believe destroys their photography. So hi everyone, this is Jiggy, a portrait and wedding photographer from the Philippines, and welcome to the channel. So let's go straight to the point. The very first one that I believe that destroys one's photography, especially if you're just starting, is obsessing with the technical and forgetting about the photograph. So how often have you shot an image and you said, oh, you know what, it's slightly overexposed and I believe that it's not a perfect image. Or I should look at the leading lines. Maybe I should look at this compositional technique. Or maybe I should do this and that on things that I actually saw in a book and I wanted to get my image technically perfect. And one thing I realized whenever you're obsessing about the technical aspect of photography is you forget what photography is all about. Well, of course, it depends on what you're shooting, but in general, photography is about capturing life. And we use a technical aspect to capture an amazing photograph, but more essentially, it is always just about the message that you want to convey. Now, all these technical aspects will really come into play eventually, and you'd realize that you actually stop thinking about it when in reality, this is how it really goes. We, let's say, as professional photographers, actually do understand all those technicals, but we never stop and think about those technicals. I never see leading lines and say, oh, this is perfect, leading lines, I should shoot and put my subject there because these are the leading lines. No. Basically, for me, it is more about what I want to convey with that specific photograph, and I use these technical aspects to make my vision into a reality. Number 2, not knowing the full capabilities of your camera gear. In order to understand this, it's always important to ask yourself, who is the master, you or your gear? Who has the vision, you or your gear? Now, this is not going to be a debate about which is more important, skill or gear, but rather what I am saying, no matter what gear you have to be the master of your gear. In other words, you should know what the capabilities of your gear are, and at the same time, you should also know what the limitations of your gear are. Why? Because when you are shooting, you are there to highlight or to maximize the potential of what your gear is good at, and at the same time, you try to hide the limitations of your gear. Let's say, for example, you have maybe one of the older cameras and they don't focus that fast. So you have to be aware that your camera is not capable of focusing fast. Therefore, you have to now do certain things to compensate for that. Like for example, as a wedding photographer, and my camera doesn't focus really fast, and I have my bridal march going. In order for me to get the proper focus, I would actually pre-focus in a certain area and wait for the bride to pass through that area, therefore giving me perfect focus all the time. So it's just about that. We need to master our own gear. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to share that there's an ongoing photo contest from Viltrox and the prizes are worth $15,000. So if you guys want to know more about it, I'll leave the link in the description below. But this is an ongoing photo contest and it will end on June 10, 2023. The third one is gear envy. Of course, I mentioned it earlier, it's about gear versus skill, but personally, I do believe that gear is very important. However, it should never be a limitation to what you could do or how you could grow in terms of a photographer. One thing that I really feel that hinders the growth of any photographer is that person seeing other people's gear and saying, you know what, they were able to get that photograph only because they had this. Now, the challenge is really making those photographs even if you don't have the gear, or maximizing once again the gear that you already have. So having or being envious of other people's gear would only be detrimental for you as a photographer rather than looking at it as a glass half empty or glass half full thing. Well, actually, I look at it this way. A friend of mine actually brought it to my attention, so it's just really perfect. When you look at things and you say that it's glass half empty, others would say, oh, you look at things as glass half full. When this person actually told me, instead of looking at that, why don't you just replace the glass? And that's the same thing with gear. Whatever you have, maximize the gear you have, which goes back to the first one that I was saying, master the gear that you have, and then eventually you get better at your craft. If you get better in your craft, maybe you make more money, and if you have more money, the more gear you can buy to make your craft even better. The fourth is shoot and thinking you can crop or fix in post. Or basically, the I will fix everything in post attitude. Now, that goes back to the very first thing that I said, that it's obsessing about the technical and forgetting about the photograph. It goes the same way. Whenever you're shooting, you should be obsessed about the photograph, not about the technical aspect of how to edit it afterwards, but rather trying to get it right in front of the camera. Because that one, basically, you're creating a habit that's going to be very good in the future. Now, why do I say that? Imagine if I had, I'll just shoot and I'll fix this in post. Now, I ended up being a wedding photographer and I shoot about 5,000 images. Imagine having to edit even just a quarter of those 5,000 images. How much time would I be spending in front of the camera? Secondly, I give all my images straight out of the camera to my clients and I edit a few. Now, if I can't really tell my clients, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that to make the image perfect. And also, it's very important that whenever you're shooting a photograph, there has to be some thought behind it. You can't just shoot and say, oh, I'll just fix it later, or I'll just think about it later, I'll just capture the moment and see how it turns out. There is a bit of luck, of course, with photography, but the better you get, the luckier you are. Okay? So number 5, stop pressuring yourself to get the shot. Especially when you're starting out in photography, there is a bit of pressure or a frustration within yourself, thinking that I should be able to get that shot, I should do this, I should be able to do that. You know what, for me, personally, just enjoy the process of learning, because the learning process is the most enjoyable part of photography. Understanding the things that make things better, understanding what makes a photograph better. It's not about, again, it's so cliche, it's not about the destination, but rather the journey. It really holds true even here in photography, because there's nothing wrong with actually making mistakes. When in reality, let's say, for example, I post a photo, there are probably about 50 or 100, or maybe not, maybe about 10 pictures that I don't like of that series, and I'll just like one. That's the entire process. But then the end result of pressuring yourself or telling yourself, no, I have to get the shot, no, I have to get the shot, and I get frustrated if I don't get the shot, that's a wrong mentality. It's about enjoying the process, and eventually you will get the shot. And even if you don't, consider it as a learning experience. And that is what makes photography fun. And trust me, as long as it is fun, you will be better, or you will get better as a photographer. So let me recap again. These are a few habits, or maybe 5 habits, that I believe hinders your growth as a photographer. One is that you are obsessing with the technical and forgetting about taking the photograph. 2, not knowing the full capabilities of your camera. Number 3, envious of other people's gear. Number 4 is that I will fix it in post mentality. And number 5, pressuring yourself to get the shot. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do subscribe to the channel and like this video also, and while you're at it, click that notification bell. Now, if you want to see some of the images that I've created, it's at Jiggy Alejandrino on Instagram and also on TikTok. Now, if you have any questions with regards to this video, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Okay, till the next video.